Tonight on ABC News Live, prime new threats from President Trump to send military troops into Minneapolis. Outrage on the streets after the second federal agent involved shooting there in a little more than a week. President Trump now warns he will invoke the Insurrection Act, which would use military troops on American streets against American citizens. Also today, President Trump welcoming Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado to the White House, who presented her Nobel Peace Prize to the president as he claims she does not have enough support to lead her country. Second winter storm system heads right for the Northeast after a major winter storm brought blinding snow and ice, causing travel chaos over the last 24 hours. It's currently the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. We take you inside Sudan to hear the women who fled from the atrocities.
أنا بفتش في ولدي عشان بلقاه ما لقيته الناس قالوا كله بقول لي يمكن مع الناس الميتين.
The sports betting scandal expands. Federal authorities charge 24 people, including current and former college basketball players, accusing them of fixing games. Did you lose service in that massive outage? What Verizon is now offering impacted customers. And she married one of the most famous musicians of all time, but their marriage wasn't always on her mind. Priscilla Presley gets candid about life with Elvis.
I wasn't thriving when I was with him, and I had to really find myself.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. It is a busy Thursday night, and we're following several major stories, including the meeting today with President Trump and Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado in Washington, D.C., and the freezing temperatures hitting many parts of the country. President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minneapolis, which would allow him to send the U.S. military into the city. This on the heels of violent clashes between protesters and authorities, sparked after the ICE-involved shooting of Renee Good 1 week ago. And breaking news tonight, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is urging residents to stay calm, saying, for those that are taking the bait, you are not helping. And just last night, another federal agent involved shooting there. We're hearing dramatic 911 calls of a woman pleading for help after she says agents followed her husband home and shot him in the leg. We'll speak to a former senior official at the Department of Homeland Security to help break down what the Insurrection Act is. But first, ABC's Faith Abube leads us off again from Minneapolis.
Tonight, new protests in the Twin Cities after the second ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis in a week. And now President Trump is threatening to send in military troops. Overnight, an ICE agent shot and wounded Venezuelan national Julio Cesar Sosa Celis. Homeland Security officials say Celis fled to a nearby home during a targeted traffic stop. And during the struggle, 2 men came out of the home and attacked the agent with a shovel and a broom handle. All 3 men are now in custody. As word of the shooting spread, some 200 protesters swarmed the scene, throwing fireworks, smashing vehicles, and fighting with police. The shooting comes a week after ICE agent Jonathan Ross shot Renee Good, and as some 3,000 federal agents roamed the city, pulling some from their cars. Many were frightened, and this interaction,
where were you born?
Recorded by resident Nimka Omar, a look at what it's like to be questioned.
Do you have an ID on you, ma'am?
I don't need an ID to walk around in my city. This is my city.
Okay, do you have some ID then, please?
I don't need it.
If not, we're going to put you in the vehicle and we're going to ID you.
I am U.S. citizen.
All right, can we see an ID, please?
I am U.S. citizen.
She refused to show identification, and eventually they left. Tonight, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey outraged over these stops.
I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. If it were your city, it would be unacceptable there too.
But calling for residents to stay peaceful.
For anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos.
And tonight, President Trump threatening the Insurrection Act, writing on social media, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act would give the president the power to deploy U.S. military forces in Minnesota. Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz is not asking for the military. He's asking to get ICE out.
To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, end this occupation. You've done enough.
Faith Abube joins us now from Minneapolis. So, Faith, what's the latest involving that woman who was pulled over by ICE this week?
Lindsay, we've shown you those images, those dramatic images of that woman being pulled out of her vehicle by ICE agents as she tells them that she's disabled. Aaliyah Rahman is speaking out tonight. She says in a statement that she lost consciousness and had to go to the hospital. And tonight, she feels lucky to be alive. Lindsay.
Faith Abube, our thanks to you. For more now, we're joined by ABC News contributor John Cohen. He's a former senior official at DHS and Republican and Democratic administrations and a former police trainer. John, thanks so much for joining us. As we heard, the president spoke about potentially using the Insurrection Act to quell the Minnesota protests. So let's just start with the very basics. Tell us about what the Insurrection Act is and how it works.
The Insurrection Act can be invoked by a president, but its invocation is a last-ditch effort. It can be used at the request of the government, request of a governor, or the president can invoke it on his own to suppress an insurrection, rebellion, or unlawful obstruction of federal law. The challenge for the administration is, while they may be able to make a legal case that the act can be invoked, those who oppose the invocation of the act will raise concerns that it's the government's own actions in the conduct of and how they're conducting their enforcement operations and dealing with protests that's actually one of the catalysts for the current unrest in Minneapolis.
So tell us, what's the precedent for this?
Well, it's a law that goes back to the 1700s, and it was intended as a way that the president could take steps if an act of rebellion exceeded the capacity of state and local officials to maintain order, or to deal with an invasion by a foreign army coming into the United States. So like I said, it was intended to be invoked under the rarest of circumstances. And what it essentially does is it not only deploys U.S. military to the streets of a U.S. city, but it suspends prohibitions that preclude them from engaging in law enforcement activities. And this goes back to the earliest days of the Republic, where British troops would regularly go in and search colonist homes and engage in law enforcement actions. So this is something that's very fundamental to the foundation of our republic.
So we've already experienced several cities in this country where the National Guard has been brought in. What would it look like in Minneapolis if the president did invoke the Insurrection Act there?
Well, it would visibly look very similar. You would see U.S. military vehicles with armed soldiers on the streets of the city. They may be engaging in direct law enforcement activity, detaining citizens. But you're asking the right question, because while the president may have legal authorities to invoke the Insurrection Act, the question is, what's the purpose? In the current environment, as a law enforcement professional, I doubt that sending armed military who have very little experience in handling crowd control activities and whose primary job is to locate the enemy, engage the enemy, and kill the enemy, whether that's the skill sets you need on the streets to deal with demonstrations and protests that are becoming increasingly destructive and violent. What should be happening is state and local law enforcement and the feds should be working together to deal with the immigration enforcement activities and the increased protests.
So we're looking at images in the split screen here of the smoke and of officers versus protesters in the streets. What kind of impact do you think bringing troops would have on this current situation?
I think it would probably make the situation worse. I mean, part of my concern and the concern of law enforcement professionals is that you watch these videos depicting ICE and Border Patrol personnel, in groups running up to cars, screaming and yelling and swearing and dragging people out of cars. As you watch videos such as the one earlier where they are walking up to people randomly and asking where they were born and for their identification. When you see Border Patrol or ICE officers yelling, screaming, swearing, pushing, kicking, or pushing down individuals who are in public areas photographing them, when you see, people in motor vehicles who may be blocking traffic, which, by the way, isn't a federal offense, being pulled out of their cars and handcuffed and thrown into a van, those raise questions about the constitutionality of what's being done operationally and whether the force being applied is excessive. So I think I totally agree. I agree with the president, and I agree with Secretary Noem that something needs to be done to de-escalate the situation. But part of that solution is taking a hard look at the conduct of how the operation is being carried out.
John Cohen, so appreciate your insight and time. Thank you. With Venezuela's future hanging in the balance, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado was in D.C. today, meeting with President Trump and congressional leaders, all this less than 2 weeks after the U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro. During the meeting, Machado presented her Nobel Peace Prize to President Trump, and a White House official confirms to ABC News that the president did accept the prize. Our senior political correspondent Rachel Scott has those details.
Tonight, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado meeting with President Trump at the White House, bringing a special gift in an effort to win his support, the Nobel Peace Prize she won.
I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize.
President Trump has often complained that he didn't win that prize himself.
I can't think of anybody in history that should get the Nobel Prize more than me.
After President Trump captured Venezuela's former president, Nicolas Maduro, he was asked if Machado should lead the new Venezuela, considering her party says they won 80% of the vote in the last election.
Well, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country.
Since then, he has praised Venezuela's new acting president, Maduro's former second in command, Delcy Rodriguez. Today, Machado clearly hoping giving Trump her Nobel Peace Prize will help her cause.
As a recognition for his unique commitment with our freedom.
Tonight, our Mary Bruce asking the president,
how was the meeting with Machado?
Great.
Our thanks to Rachel Scott with more on Machado's D.C. visit and what this all means for the future of Venezuela. Let's bring in Maria Angela Capello, former general manager of PDVSA, which is Venezuela's state energy company. Dr. Capello, we thank you so much for joining us. What does the meeting with President Trump mean for the Venezuelan regime?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I think that carries a lot of emotional weight for all of us, and it signals that our democratic struggle is very much alive. It carries symbolism. It carries even love from the Venezuelan people. And that reminds all of us that Venezuela is not starting from zero in oil matters. We have a place in the oil scenario worldwide, and very important one. So for Venezuelans, this meeting is like a reminder of our story and our potential, which is very much alive.
President Trump has said that Machado didn't have the respect and support needed to lead Venezuela. Is that how the majority of people in Venezuela feel about the opposition leader?
I would say that is not the reality. In fact, Maria Corina Machado has led a movement that we praise and that has joined Venezuelans, not only in country, but also in the diaspora, outside Venezuela, in the many countries that we live in, and regain for us what is hope in a true democratic change for our country.
All of this, of course, is happening as the U.S. says that it has seized a sixth oil tanker linked to Venezuela. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, today promoted oil industry reforms that would allow greater foreign investment, an objective aggressively pushed by the Trump administration. What do Venezuelans think about the recovery of the oil industry in Venezuela?
I would say that technically, the recovery of our own industry is very, very feasible and absolutely a matter of fact, because the risk in Venezuela is not in the subsurface, it's not even in the talent of the Venezuelans. The risk is in the assurance of democracy, in the legal stability that we have in the country, and perhaps also, or most fundamentally, in the transparency that we need in the governance. So let me share a personal anecdote here. When I was leading a seismic crew in the jungle, starting my career in Venezuela, we were exhausted. We were covered in mud. Our radios, kept failing. And one of the youngest operators looked at me and say, "Jefa, What we need is to believe that all this struggle will lead to something useful. And this is how Venezuelans feel right now. We are hoping, and our trust is placed in that we do have the resources, okay? In Venezuela, again, the risk is not on the geology or on the subsurface. It is in the assurance of democracy. And this is what we need to have in the legal system so that the oil industry can recover.
Who do you feel should be running the country at this point, and what do you think about the U.S. potentially doing so?
We have always partnered with the U.S., but I do think that the Venezuelans have demonstrated that we can run our industry. We position PDVSA, in the pre-Chavez era, in the top 4 oil industries in the world. In our DNA, we have innovation. We have a country in which it's a pleasure to live in, to invest, to work in. Venezuela has pipelines and gas infrastructure, thousands of wells that require minor work. And most importantly, we have knowledge and talent. When I started in the oil industry, my first meeting, the very first day I arrived to work, we received a visit of a consultant, by the way, from the University of Texas at Austin, Jackson School of Geosciences. And I was so proud to immediately gain and grasp technology from the day one. Yes, we made mistakes, but those are not necessarily imputable just to the oil workers. I think it was the political thing that damaged what we had, and we are ready to recover that. The talent is there, and the subsurface doesn't have any risk. So in Venezuela, there is the willingness to progress our own oil industry, and Venezuelans can do that. The diaspora can do that if the legal framework is there, if the institutions, again, recover their transparency, and the democracy is reinstalled in the country.
Dr. Maria Angela Capello, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. The U.S. has imposed new sanctions on Iran for its deadly force on protesters. The Treasury Department targeted 24 Iranian officials and entities, including high-ranking commanders of Iran's security forces. Human rights groups have estimated 2,800 protesters have been killed and more than 18,000 arrested. President Trump announced that Iran will hold off on executing prisoners. But today, Iran's judiciary signaled continued use of harsh punishment for protesters. Federal prosecutors are charging more than 24 people, including former college basketball players, for allegedly trying to fix games in both the NCAA and Chinese Basketball Association. Here's our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky.
And here comes Cross into the front court. Went behind his back, lost it.
For 3 years, federal prosecutors say some college basketball games around the country were fixed.
In the corner to Caresi.
And tonight, dozens of Division I players are charged with taking bribes from sports bettors to lose on purpose.
This was a massive scheme. It enveloped the world of college basketball. We're talking about dozens of games, athletes, 17 teams. I do view it as historic.
Now Hunter will get the Cowboy defender airborne and miss the shot.
In this 2024 game between New Orleans and McNeese State, the indictment says New Orleans guard Sid Quavius Day Hunter agreed to underperform in exchange for thousands of dollars in bribe payments.
Hunter once again. This time he hits the three-pointer.
In an interview with ABC's Will Reeve, Hunter admitted to point shaving.
I make a couple and miss a couple. I was money hungry. That's how it was, money hungry.
Our thanks to Aaron Katursky. After promising to introduce his own health care plan for more than a decade, today President Trump announced what he calls the Great Health Care Plan. The plan is to replace government subsidies for health insurance with direct payments to consumers to purchase their own health care. Officials have called the one-page plan a framework for what's to come. Health experts have quickly criticized it. There's no guarantee on the set amount of money given out, which may leave many uninsured. This comes on the last day to select Affordable Care Act health insurance plans. About 1.4 million fewer people have signed up many due to rising insurance costs. Tonight, a major winter storm is sweeping into the Northeast, triggering pileups on highways in several states over the last 24 hours. This is a second system is moving into the Northeast on Saturday. Meteorologist Lee Goldberg has the forecast. But first, ABC's Whit Johnson has images from this brutal weather day.
Tonight, the dangerous winter storm causing travel chaos, triggering multiple pileups. New video showing the mayhem on I-90 in Erie County, Pennsylvania. A violent chain reaction crash crushing cars and trucks, mangled metal littering the roadway. Several people rushed to the hospital. Some 80 miles south of there in Clarion County, Pennsylvania, first responders racing to the scene of this multi-vehicle crash on I-80. Just south of Syracuse, New York, this massive 36-car pileup on I-81 in Lafayette.
This is now all the way back into the way station, into our district. We've got cars everywhere.
At least 3 tractor trailers involved. 7 people rushed to the hospital, several with broken bones. The highway shut down for hours. More than a foot of lake-effect snow falling from upstate New York to Michigan. In Bridgman, Michigan, coming down at nearly 2 inches per hour. In Ohio, west of Cleveland, this man warning fellow drivers.
There was definitely a lot of snow out there, and it's slippery around every turn, so everybody be careful out there.
In Manhattan, Illinois, southwest of Chicago, a deadly head-on crash involving a school bus. A person in the car killed, 10 students and the bus driver taken to the hospital as a precaution. Temperatures below freezing, authorities investigating the cause.
All right, Wade, thank you. Let's get right to our partner station, WABC's chief meteorologist, Lee Goldberg. How's it looking, Lee?
Lindsay, it's looking a lot colder now for the foreseeable future here. We were 52 in New York yesterday. Feels like 22 as we go into the evening hours. Bitter cold is now in place. That'll set the stage for some snow over the weekend. Look at the wake-up wind chills. Friday morning feels like 3 Syracuse, 15 below Saranac Lake. Along the I-95 corridor, 11 Philly, 13 New York, and 10 in Boston, 8 in Hartford. We still have lake-effect snow warnings tonight. Those will wind down after a foot of snow, but a new storm coming in from the Midwest. How about the snow for Chicago? Could be slippery for the morning commute. That comes eastward, Michigan to western New York State during the day tomorrow, and then into the Northeast over the weekend. A couple of rounds of snow late Friday night into midday Saturday, New York to Boston. Maybe a coating to a couple inches of snow, a little slick there, and then more lake effect snows and another bitter blast to follow next week. Lindsay?
All right, L to the G. Thanks so much. If you're a Verizon customer who lost service in that massive outage, expect a little extra money in your wallet. Verizon said anyone impacted yesterday can now redeem a $20 account credit by logging into the My Verizon app. The company announced the news and apologized in a statement today. They blamed a software issue. The problems have since been resolved. And still ahead, a new poll just out. If Americans are warming up to the U.S. taking control of Greenland. Plus, watch those 4 astronauts splash down to Earth after the first medical evacuation from the space station ever. And he's left Harry's house for the disco floor. What we know about the highly anticipated 4th studio album coming from pop star Harry Styles. Welcome back, everyone. The U.S.'s recent interactions with Venezuela and Greenland have grabbed attention around the world. Now a new CNN poll shows how people here at home feel about it, with many expressing concerns about the Trump administration's actions and what it means for the U.S.'s standing worldwide. Let's take a look at the polling by the numbers. 75% of Americans polled said that they oppose the U.S. trying to take control of Greenland, including 52% who strongly opposed it. There was more of a split on Venezuela. 52% said they opposed the decision to take military action there, with 48% saying they were in favor of it. About 62% said they were not confident that Venezuela would have a stable government a year from now. The Trump administration's foreign policy decisions overall were also questioned. 57% said their decisions have hurt America's standing worldwide, an increase from 53% who felt that way over the summer. Specifically, 59% said they were concerned Trump has gone too far to expand America's power over other countries. In the polling about Greenland, there was a 50-50 split among Republicans and Republican-leaning independents in terms of those supporting or opposed to doing so. Among Democrats, Democratic-leaning independents, and independents not leaning toward either party, wide majorities were opposed. European troops arrived in Greenland as President Trump doubles down on his calls for the U.S. to control the Danish territory. Soldiers from NATO countries, including France, Germany, Sweden, and Norway, have deployed to the island in a show of support for Denmark. I want to bring in former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark, Rufus Gifford. Thank you so much for joining us again. What's the likelihood that the U.S. will actually attempt to use military force to take Greenland?
Well, I got to say, Lindsay, that one, thank you for having me back. I like to believe that the odds are very, very low. I do think they're continuing to get lower. Ultimately, what we're seeing, and I'm very grateful for this, is not only the strength from our unified strength from our European counterparts, our European allies, but we're also seeing some meaningful action in Congress. You're seeing bipartisan initiatives. You had Republican Congressman John Bacon just today, or I believe it was today, saying that any use of the military in Greenland would be impeachable, and there'd be a lot of Republicans to support that. So I think the odds are mercifully and gratefully quite low.
Greenland is, of course, a member of NATO through Denmark. What happens to NATO if Trump attempts to take over Greenland?
I think, Lindsay, this is it's unprecedented in every way. The alliance was not set up for this. The alliance was not set up in any way to build in some sort of provision where one country, one ally attacks another. So it is very, very hard to see a scenario where NATO survives, in its current formation at least, were the United States to take hostile action against Greenland. I just can't see that.
Trump insists Russia and China will take the country over if the U.S. does not. What do you make of those accusations?
It's the statements are reckless and clueless, Lindsay, and I feel very strongly about this. And there's three reasons why the national security argument is so flawed. The first one is, look, if, God forbid, Greenland were attacked by an adversary, Article 5 of NATO would be invoked, and the entire alliance, including the United States, would be compelled to respond. The second thing is, of course, and this has been wildly reported, reported for the last few weeks, is that we, if we wanted to, could build any military base that we wanted on Greenland. We used to have 17 military bases there. Now we only have one. And the third is that I just think it's a ridiculous argument that any weakening of the NATO alliance, which is what is happening now, would in any way be good for American national security. In fact, it would only empower our largest adversaries in the world, in Russia and China.
As you know, Denmark is a major ally of the U.S. and an important trading partner. As someone who's lived in the country, how are Danes reacting to the U.S. threat?
Well, I think, Lindsay, the best word to use is heartbroken. We are their most important ally in the world. And to hear the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, mock them over and over again, call them bad allies. So I think now it's building into a considerable anger. And I don't blame them. I mean, this is a country that fought and died alongside all of us in places like Afghanistan. They lost more people per capita than any country in the world other than us. And they deserve to be treated with respect, with truth, with honesty.
Rufus Gifford, so appreciate your time. Thank you.
Anytime, Lindsay. Thank you.
Coming up, Oscar winner Matthew McConaughey is taking bold action to stop AI from using his likeness. And Philadelphia's iconic Rocky statue will soon be on the move. It's not going too far, though, but you might need to work a little harder to see it. Welcome back to Prime. Here's a look at the stories making headlines right now. As tensions intensify in Minneapolis, President Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act in the state and deploy U.S. troops to intervene. Protesters facing off against federal agents in the Twin Cities again today following another shooting involving a federal agent last night. DHS says an agent shot a Venezuelan man in the leg after he fled a traffic stop and then attacked an officer. Amid the rapid growth of AI deepfakes in Hollywood, Oscar-winning actor Matthew McConaughey is trademarking himself. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has approved 8 trademarks, including video and audio of the actor, as well as his famous catchphrase, "All right, all right, all right." McConaughey's lawyers say that they hope the trademarks can be used against any misuse. And 4 astronauts are now back on Earth after NASA ended its mission early due to a medical issue affecting one of the crew members. NASA says the sick member is in stable condition. Their SpaceX capsule splashed down in the Pacific Ocean today, capping a 10-hour-plus descent back to Earth. This was NASA's first ever medical evacuation from the International Space Station. And coming up, we take you inside Sudan as it experiences the worst humanitarian crisis in the world and hear from some of the women who fled the atrocities. And our conversation with Priscilla Presley, out with a memoir reflecting on life with Elvis. Welcome back, everyone. It's currently the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Millions of people displaced, tens of thousands killed. But with so much focus on Ukraine, Gaza, and Iran, many don't know the horrors playing out inside of Sudan. It's difficult to get information, but the U.S. says genocide is taking place, harkening back to dark days of decades ago. In tonight's Prime Focus, Ian Pannell and our team have spent months hearing from people on the ground and piecing together some of the atrocities playing out. And tonight, as this conflict has now passed 1,000 days of fighting, we listen to the women caught in the crosshairs of a war they did not ask for.
Imagine that your entire city of 1 million people completely shut off from the rest of the world. No one is allowed out. No food or water or supplies like medicine are allowed in. And you're dealing with bomb strikes.
أنا بفتش في ولدي عشان بلقاه ما لقيته الناس قالوا كله بقول لي يمكن مع الناس الميتين.
It's a country tragically familiar with the brutality of man and far from the eyes of the world. Harrowing accounts of what the US government now calls a new genocide in Sudan. Civilians once again trapped between 2 warring sides. A conflict between the rebel group known as the RSF and the Sudanese military, raging for over 1,000 days. In late October of 2025, videos exposed gruesome mass killings by the RSF in Sudan's Darfur region. It's been the world's worst humanitarian crisis for the last 2 years. More than 30 million desperately need help. And yet this is a crisis largely out of sight, out of mind. A darkness has descended on El Fasher, a city cut off from the outside world. The IRC estimating nearly 250,000 people trapped inside. The rebel RSF accused of carrying out door-to-door massacres. The crimes committed visible from space. ABC's visual verification team has documented 48 hours of hell posted online by gloating RSF fighters. At El Fasher University, where civilians sought refuge, armed RSF rebels walk into the halls, filled with bodies, posting these graphic videos of their attacks, evidence of a massacre broadcast to the world. And this is what happened when civilians tried to flee the city. Satellite images show a cluster of objects visible by a berm built by the RSF. Verified video on the scene shows it's dozens of charred vehicles and lifeless bodies. The militants celebrating the aftermath of a slaughter. According to the UN Refugee Agency, more than 12 million people in Sudan have fled their homes. Jamila Ismail, who's a mother of 7, fled El Fasher with her children. Her son shot during the chaos. Aid groups are at a loss, struggling to fund and access the most basic resources. 26-year-old Heba Aladdin is helping people who were displaced when the violence broke out, despite having to flee from another part of Sudan that was attacked. She's now working from a mobile clinic with the Sudan Family Planning Association.
Today we are in Al-Afad camp in a Debba state, which people from Al-Fasher have been displacement here in this camp. Through our mobile clinic, we are providing reproductive health and gender-based violence services.
But due to internet blackouts, she was only able to send us these voice messages explaining what her life has been like since.
The needs in the camp are growing every day. Life has been difficult. I have seen families fleeing in fear. Mothers holding their children with nothing in their hands. I hear the stories of loss, pain, and uncertainty, and I feel the deep responsibility to stand with them.
The tragedy for Sudan is that this is history repeating itself.
As many as 300,000 people have died in Darfur, more than 2.5 million homeless.
2 decades ago, the word Darfur echoed across the world.
Some human rights groups are calling what's happening here ethnic cleansing.
As similar scenes unfolded, up to 2 million deaths, 1 million more displaced, sparking global outrage.
In my country, wars have ended, but peace has never come.
Emi Mahmoud is a Sudanese-American poet born and raised in Darfur. She uses her pen to raise awareness around the world of what her life was like in Sudan.
And the last time we went home, we watched our village burn. Soldiers pouring blood from civilian skulls as if they too could turn water into wine.
When's the last time you were back in Sudan?
2018, December, when the revolution started. My hometown, El Fasher, and Darfur, is a continuation of the Darfur genocide. What's so ironic about all of this is that we're experiencing genocide and living in poverty, and yet we're sitting on some of the largest gold reserves in the entire world, and that's what the fight is about. 2 warring parties funded by so many world powers.
The US State Department has said both sides are committing war crimes and that the RSF is committing genocide.
When you're in a conflict, often the rules of war get tossed out the window and things are done in silence.
Dr. Tom Katina works in the Nuba Mountains in Sudan, opening up his own hospital in 2008, which was nearly bombed in 2018.
The feeling is one of just intense fear. I think there's no other way to describe it.
Here it comes.
And he believes his community was targeted again, sending us this update after he returned home.
There was a drone strike in our local area a few miles from here. A couple weeks ago, there were about over 40 fatalities. So we're standing by and ready for whatever comes our way.
This is how wars are. If you target a hospital, imagine the demoralizing effect that has on those people. One of the main problems in Sudan and all of rural Africa is access to health care.
Back in those aid camps, the stark reality of war is taking its toll.
معنا شديد يعني وجع في الجسم وفي ظهر يعني ما في أي إنسانية يقول المرأة دي حامل ولا المرأة دي عندها كده ولا عندها شفها في ظهرها ولا شفها في يدينا.
Nadra Ahmed is one of over 140 pregnant women at the Al-Daba camps in northern Sudan, walking 25 miles through RSF strongholds with her children. She was 7 months pregnant, fleeing El Fasher days prior to the attacks.
أنا ما مرقت وأنا حامل بطفلي ده تعب شديد لدرجة خيالي وأنا شايلة الطفل في ظهري تاني والطفل ده في بطني ولسه هضرب فكر عيني.
Despite attempts to broker a peace deal, today, 1,000 days since it began, the fighting continues.
Sudan Beledi means Sudan is my home. There's still hope, because if our families on the ground who are surviving are not losing hope, I don't have a right to lose hope.
Hope is what sustains them now. Our thanks to Ian Pannell for that. And while we just saw civilians have been unable to escape the violence, today the World Food Program estimated more than 21 million people are facing acute hunger in Sudan. And to continue the aid that they're supplying, they would need $700 million. Coming up, the major coaching change in New York City. The Giants get a Super Bowl winning coach and the Pokemon robbery caught on camera. A new Super Bowl winning coach for the Giants, a Pokemon robbery caught on camera, and a new type of ketchup for your French fries. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown. Surveillance video obtained by WABC shows 3 armed men robbing a Pokemon store in Manhattan and holding dozens of people at gunpoint. Masked individuals stole about $1,000 in cash from a register, a cell phone, and an unknown amount of merchandise before fleeing on foot. Workers say the stolen merchandise could total more than $100,000. The entire ordeal lasted roughly 3 minutes. Police say no one was injured and no arrests have been made. The New York Giants are expected to land the biggest name of the 2026 head coaching cycle. Former Baltimore Ravens coach and Super Bowl winner John Harbaugh is nearing a deal to become the Giants' next head coach, according to league reports. NFL insiders say that the two sides are finalizing a 5-year contract that would make Harbaugh one of the NFL's highest paid coaches. The Giants fired coach Brian Daboll in November after a disappointing season. Harbaugh will now be tasked with returning New York to the NFC heavyweight it once was. Ketchup and fries may be a perfect pair, but eating them on the go has long been messy. Well, now Heinz, the global leader in condiments, says it has a solution. The company is rolling out its patent-pending Heinz Dipper, a redesigned fry box with a built-in ketchup compartment made for easy dipping. Heinz says most fry lovers have spilled ketchup while on the move, with many skipping condiments altogether due to the spilled mess. The new container is debuting at select restaurants and sports stadiums in 11 countries around the globe. The iconic Rocky statue in Philly is making a move, but don't worry, it's not going far. The statue of Sylvester Stallone's Rocky will move from the bottom of the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum to the top. Visitors and fans will have to chug their way up the stairs, just like Rocky, to see the landmark statue. But before it's moved up the steps, the nearly 9-foot-tall bronze statue will be displayed in the Art Museum for the first time since it was installed back in 1982. Harry Styles is back with his first new album since 2022. The album, titled Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally, will be released March 6th and features 12 tracks from the English singer. Styles released an image of the album art on Instagram alongside the announcement this will be his 4th solo project. With the Oscars right around the corner, the Academy of Arts and Sciences announced today that actress Danielle Brooks and actor Louis Pullman will be revealing the nominees for the 98th Oscars next Thursday right here on ABC News Live. 317 films will be in contention for the Academy Award, and 201 feature films were eligible for consideration this year. And this year adds a new category honoring achievement in casting. The annual ceremony will take place in Los Angeles on March 15th, hosted by Conan O'Brien and broadcast on ABC. If Elvis Presley were still with us, he would have just celebrated his 91st birthday last week on January 8th. His former wife, Priscilla Presley, is out with a memoir called Softly as I Leave You, Life After Elvis, where she reflects candidly on managing Elvis's legacy nearly 5 decades after his death, and writes about the more recent deaths of her daughter, Lisa Marie, and Lisa Marie's son, Ben, who died by suicide. Here's our conversation with Priscilla Presley. The book is just so revealing. What made you decide now is the time to share this, as you describe it, as the final telling of what it was like to be queen to the king of rock and roll?
Well, I'm not getting any younger, that's for sure. And I made the decision to do the book because of that. I wanted to, tell my story, and I hope people, would like it or would understand it. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's happiness in the book. There's sadness. But it is my story, mm-hmm. And I just felt the timing was right, and also my daughter passing affected me quite a bit, and it's that was been the most difficult, as for any mother, to lose a child.
You write about the highs and lows with Lisa Marie. Was there a reconciliation before mm-hmm. her passing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it was just Lisa, she was kind of a wild child, which I loved about her. But we had differences. And there, as a mother, I didn't approve of some things. And she knew it. We had our talks. But there was a little conflict there. But toward the end, we absolutely made up and we were fine. It's just mother and daughter,
This book is really the first time that you talk in depth about her passing. What were those final days like?
Horrible. Mm. Absolutely horrible. I wish I had no mother. It was hard to understand. My daughter lost her son, mm. Ben, and that was really when we lost her. Mm. When he passed, she did too. Mm. She didn't really want to be here. And then she had she had twins, and she had to think about that. And I asked her to think about the fact that if she were to go, what about your twins? Because she would say, Mom, I don't know if I want to be here. Mm. So I never thought that, the ending would be, what the ending was. So that was very difficult for a mother.
Once she married Michael Jackson, you describe yourself in the book as being appalled by that. Why?
Because Michael, I think he married her because of who she was. Not I think, I know. He was a big Elvis fan.
You didn't feel that he loved your daughter?
No. I felt it was because who he was marrying, Elvis Presley's daughter. And I told her that. And she kind of got that herself the more that she was with him. She called me and said, Mom, I hardly see him. He's gone all the time. I go, where does he go? She goes, I don't know. So I think just the fact that he was with her is something that he enjoyed, and was, marrying Elvis Presley's daughter was a big hit for him.
Neither you or Elvis ever got remarried. Is there anything we should take away from that?
Well, we were close. People don't realize that we were. Elvis would call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, or whenever he was free. He called usually from his bathroom or from the office, and we had a nice connection, and we talked. He was seeing someone that I was actually very happy that he was seeing. I felt that she cared for him a lot, and that was all that mattered to me.
But you all continued to have a relationship even after the divorce, to be very close.
Oh yeah, we had a close relationship. Yeah.
What was the moment for you when it crystallized that you had to leave Elvis Presley's world in order for you to thrive and grow?
Well, that was just it. I wasn't thriving when I was with him, and I had to really find myself. I started taking dance classes, and I would go almost every night. And I had met all the dancers, and I started to have my own friends. And then I had my own business. I had a little clothing store, Biz and Bow, and loved that. That was freedom for me to have my own thing. Not that I didn't like the life. I loved the life. It's just I needed to find myself.
What do you think when you look at the different pictures around here?
They're all happy. They're all wonderful. I love what you've done here. It brings back so many memories.
Talk to us about Elvis Presley Enterprises, your co-founder, why that was so important to you.
Because I wanted to keep him alive. I didn't want him to be all of a sudden he passes and no more Elvis. I wanted people to know, I want a younger generation to know about him. And it's happening. The younger generation, as we have kids coming into Graceland with their parents, and they come back when they're a little older, and they brought their children. So it served its purpose.
How do you feel when you go to Graceland now?
It's like I never left.
Is that right?
Yes, it's like I never left.
It's really been maintained the same?
Yes, the same. Same furniture, same look, nothing's been touched. I walk in the doors and I go, oh my God, and the staircase is right there, and I can just see him coming down the stairs. I can look over at the dining room and see us having dinner, and then the living room, and where he's sitting there with his legs crossed and having a cigarette, and talking to the guys. Even the song that he has, Memories Pressed Between the Pages of My Mind. It's all about memories, and good memories.
So it's happy feelings.
Yes. Happy yes, in many ways. Sad because he's no longer with us.
And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Good night.